Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. And thank you for your continued viewership. It is appreciated. My name is Myron Ibarra, and I'm your host. Today, we're going to discuss the relationship between the people, the law, and the government. And when studying the law, and specifically in the arena of criminal justice, there's actually two components, or rather two different fields of study for this topic. The first, and probably the most common, is the study of how law is applied and enforced. And this study focuses on the roles of the police, the courts, and corrections. This type of study is often titled criminal justice or administration of justice. The next form of study focuses on determining what is law and who makes that decision or who decides it. And this field of study is called criminology. In this discussion, I'm going to be focusing on the latter. One of the first codified rules of society was the Code of Hammurabi, and that was in 1750 BC. This Babylonian text codified 282 rules of conduct, which included punishment for violation of these rules. In fact, it's believed the Code of Hammurabi influenced the books of the Old Testament, specifically the book of Exodus, authored by Moses. The Code of Hammurabi is based off of the principle lex talionis, and that's Latin for an eye for an eye. The whole premise of the Code of Hammurabi is that of retribution and, to some degree, general deterrence. Our current criminal code is loosely based off of this ideology. So, we the people agree that certain behaviors within our society are not acceptable, and we codify these into law and include the punishments for violation of these rules. The idea of including the punishments supports the philosophy of general deterrence. And general deterrence is the idea of advising, or in some cases showing, the people the repercussions of misbehavior in hopes that that knowledge of what the punishment will be will dissuade some people from engaging in that behavior despite their desire to do so. The idea that a DUI could cost you thousands of dollars, some jail time, and a lot of inconvenience dissuades some people from drinking and driving, but not everybody. In our society, we agree that we'll live by these rules and suffer the consequences if we violate them. But today, that's just not the case. We are seeing people illegally cross our borders by the thousands with the blessing of our federal government. We're seeing violent career criminals being released from incarceration with little to no oversight, only to re-engage in the violent behavior, harming innocent lives again and again in our communities around the United States. And we're seeing law enforcement agencies like the FBI and the United States Department of Justice, who were designed to be apolitical, being used to harass and even harm some citizens for exercising their First and Second Amendment rights, all in the name of combating hate speech or assault weapons, whatever those terms mean. The problem with this is twofold. First, societal conduct is based off of a social contract between the government and the people. The law is the rules that we all agree with, and as long as the rules are followed, that society flourishes. When people fail to follow the rules, government is supposed to step in and either correct and or punish this behavior. But when government abdicates its responsibility to enforce the rules, or more specifically, only enforce them for one side of the population based on their political ideology, then ultimately you can expect a degradation of that society. People will start losing faith in their government institutions to fairly and impartially enforce the law. And we hear this on a regular basis from political talk shows on Fox and CNN, depending on what side you're on, about the decline of the system. But we never hear what that means. So, I'm going to tell you. It means that one part of society is going to decide that they've had enough and are going to move away from the written rules of conduct into a new form of societal conduct, and one of the oldest, and that's the law of the jungle. So, what's the law of the jungle? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, the law of the jungle is a code that dictates survival by any means possible, and that is presumed to be in effect among animals in their natural state or people unrestrained by any established law or civilized personal or civil control. Or, rather, if that happens, we will have a total and complete societal breakdown. And what I find troubling is the Democrats that are currently in office, as well as some Republicans, are turning a blind eye to this lawlessness in the communities or in communities all around the United States. And people are fearful of not only being victims of criminals now, but also being victims of the criminal justice process and or their government just because their political beliefs don't align with the current regime. This thought process is very similar to the thought processes of some of the parolees I monitored while I was a California state parole agent. So, as a parole agent, I would have a local PD officer contact me to advise me that they had one of my parolees arrested for a crime like petty theft. After the officer would book them into jail, I would go see them in the jail to get their statement. And during the interview, many of these people would claim that they would steal because, well, if they got away with the theft, they could enjoy the spoils of their crime. But if they got caught, they would be arrested, booked, and sentenced to a revocation period in custody where they could be seen by doctors to address any ailments they have. They can have all their dental needs met. They could be fed, showered, and sheltered. And depending on when they went in, they would be able to hang out with their friends who were also in custody. To them, there was really no downside to committing crime. And this mentality could grow in the inverse within our society as a whole if this type of system continues. If people continue to be victims of criminals and their government, who's tasked with their protection, and that government also victimizes them, then it's only a matter of time before they too begin to engage in lawlessness. To them, there would be no downside to taking up arms because if they don't, they're going to be victimized by the criminals or victimized by their government. So what I find curious, though, is that on the political spectrum, Democrats would move to a far left, and the ones that are moving to the far left would be under complete and total government control, and that would be like communism. So Republicans moving to the far right would lead to absolute freedom, i.e. anarchy, otherwise known as the law of the jungle. So the current practice by our largely Democrat-led government of ignoring criminal behavior and punishing lawful citizens is really going to push people right. To save our democratic republic, both the federal and the state executive branches need to reset back to an apolitical law enforcement system that protects citizens and punishes criminals, and not only allows but promotes civil political discourse and debate. This will tamp down emotions and it'll restore faith in our criminal justice system and government. Now more than ever, people are looking to their government and the law to bring peace, order, and justice to their communities. Well, that concludes today's presentation. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe, smash the like button, and share my channel on your social media. It's always appreciated. And as always, have a great day and stay safe out there.